Hello and welcome to the Legacy Changemaker broadcast. My name is Biliana and I will be your host today. But let me tell you a little bit about Legacy Changemaker. Legacy Changemaker aspires to connect and bring together changemakers who are taking action. Yes, who are taking action towards building a more peaceful, hopeful, prosperous, and people and planet centered world. And today we have one of those people. His name is Tiago Roberti Sampaio, and he is a multiverse of talents. So, Tiago, hello
Hello. Hey,
and
Biliana.
welcome. Yes, let me tell our
Thank you.
audience a little bit more about you. So, you are a former Amazon software development engineer. In addition, you're a serial entrepreneur who has been working in the field of AI, and you have been engineering protein based vaccine computational biology research, which sounds like a mouthful to me. And I'll ask you later to tell us a little bit more. But recently, you have founded the analysis mode. And the analysis mode is a software based on artificial intelligence and human citizens collaboration, right? Which,
Yes, yes.
yes, which helps actually reduce the production of life saving drugs for cancer and genetical diseases, and actually increases public participation in research, which is really inspiring. So, welcome and thank you for taking the time to discuss and to be together. Before I dive into some questions, let me invite the audience, dear audience, if you have questions, comments for Tiago, please do not hesitate to write them in the section, either on LinkedIn or on Facebook or on YouTube. We will see them and we will make sure that Tiago answers them. So, with this, let's begin. So,
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, I'll be looking forward for the questions. So please do anything.
yes, that's great. So, let's dive. Can you please tell us a little bit what what is it that you're doing in simple words?
Yes, yes. Okay, so today at Analysis Mode, what we do is that we help the scientists to find better ways of manufacturing medicines, right? So manufacturing a medicine is pretty much like a cooking recipe, right? They have their own recipes, but the thing is, they don't know always what is the best ingredient or the best order or methodology to do to manufacture a medicine, which is result in a cheaper cost or higher quality, and we help them to find this, and we use the AI, and then there's a some secret source behind the AI that makes it possible for us to recommend to them what is the best recipe for certain kind of treatments.
Great. Thank you for putting it so simply. And what motivates you to work on such a complex topic?
Yeah, so this goes a little bit of my background. So I'm actually a computer scientist, and I have worked in vaccine research prior, and I was hanging out a lot with scientists that they are actually sitting on the bench in the laboratories, and I realized how painful it was for them to get the research going. And sometimes they'll be doing an experiment that will be just failing, and they have no idea why it fails. And if they want to try to figure out, they have to hire some data scientists and learn statistics. It's complicated. So me as a computer scientist, I had some knowledge in statistics and more technical. So when I look at that, I figured that, hey, I can actually help them. And this is a very good way of using technology, because my other colleagues in the university, they're focusing to gaming development, or developing apps and so on. And for me, I was really driven towards healthcare, and this is part of because of my family. We had some tricky issues about healthcare, and for example, one of the things I focus the most right now is finding better treatments for cancer. And this is because my grandfather got diagnosed of a rare kind of blood cancer really early on in life. So I saw him, through decades going through this kind of treatments and having complications, on these. And it went to a point that last year he passed away from complications from that. And this was actually my main trigger that it really shook me on life. And I decided to create analysis mode because I really wanted to push this the max I could. Because I wasn't fast enough to save my grandfather, but there are many other people out there, thousands, millions of patients that they need this help. And I just want to help the patients and also help the family members to help them, right? So this is one of the barriers that we have in science nowadays, which is people think that they need to be a scientist or do PhDs in order to help, but this is not true. And that's what I'm trying to provide to the world, a way for them to help as well.
You said something very interesting. First and foremost, accept my condolences on the passing away of your grandfather. And I
Thank you.
think it's really noble to kind of care, love, and help those who we cannot even see, but we know they need help. I think it's really noble. Uh, and thank you very much for doing it. So my question to you is, uh, I lost my thought for a second, but it's going to come back. Um, while I remember, let me ask you another one, and it is, what were the first steps you took? How did you get started?
Yeah. I'm the kind of person that I'm always having some kind of ideas and always trying to envision, solutions and, crazy technologies and so on. But most of the time, these are ideas that they don't have a problem attached to it. The people that first find a solution and then find the problem after. But then what I started doing was actually writing down these ideas. So I actually had some kind of notebook and I just keep writing, every time it comes up. And I created a system which was I write something and I don't do anything about it. And if after 1 week, when I read it back, it still makes sense, that's when I would actually dive deeper to understand what is that idea, what are the problems that could be there, and so on. And yeah, so this is the step number one. And the second step, once you actually find one area that you want to work on, in my case was the manufacturing of treatments for cancer, I had to figure out what are the biggest pain points in the area. So I literally just started reaching out for people that were working in the field, right? So I'm not an expert in this field, but I talked in the past 12 months to almost 200 people that they are working in this field. They are the experts. So I was just, scheduling meetings. And even sometimes it was really difficult to talk to them because I didn't have the whole knowledge, all the PhD words that they will be using, but I was learning in the process, right? So I think the main takeaway is that you should keep going. You should keep scheduling these meetings. You should keep, asking for help, and just realize that you're not supposed to know everything, right? You should be humble. So, for example, I'm like, I realize that okay, I know about statistics, I know about AI, I don't know about cancer specifics, but I can talk to experts that they would provide that. So be humble and understand that you can actually ask help from others and just keep going.
I love how you mentioned that you had this notebook full of ideas, and sometimes the ideas did not have a problem they were solving. And this is something
Yes, yes.
we see very often. People have a lot of ideas, but they don't really understand what is the problem those ideas are solving. And I really love how you engage the people who are living those problems and are trying to solve, to discover from them what are the pain points? What is it that they need to help with? Which is actually one of the biggest successes you can kind of set yourself up for if you truly understand the problem and try to use the tools you know to solve it. And I did remember my question. So, my question was about a phrase that you mentioned. You mentioned, you don't have to be a PhD, you don't have to be a scientist to help. Tell us more, please.
Yes, yes. So it's actually, the past decade, there is this movement called citizen science. And this means that there are some kind of tools, I can say websites, games, different kind of, activities that you can do in
Can I
which you'd be
interrupt
helping
you?
scientists.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry to interrupt. Seeds and science. Seeds like,
citizen, citizen
oh,
science.
I don't, I, how do you spell this?
Citizen as in citizenship.
Oh, citizens and science. Got it. Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so this is about so bringing people to do simple actions that would help scientists.
Mm-hmm.
So one example, actually I can be creative here. So this poster here, right? It could be a
Mm-hmm.
scientist that they have this poster, but then they need to identify which kind of cells are in this poster. So
Mm-hmm.
you could create some kind of website in which you'd be teaching the people, saying, okay, the orange ones is like a immune cell, this one is like a neuron cell, and so on. And then you just teach these basics, and then later on you provide different kind of pictures and ask people to help to do this kind of labeling, to tell what's in there. And this is like, you don't need to be a scientist. It's just, it's a really simple thing. It's just you have this human superpower of identifying patterns and identifying different shapes, so you can actually use that. And this helps the scientists a lot because some of the scientists, they work over 700 hours per year just doing this kind of analysis of images. And then when you actually get people to help them, they don't need to spend this 700 hours. That is the power of the community, of the crowd helping them.
Yes, amazing. As you called it, the human superpower
Yes.
to discover patterns, right?
Yes.
And this is
Yes,
what
exactly.
actually, and this is what actually AI also, once you train an AI, it continues further. It takes our pattern recognition kind of answers and develops them further, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Artificial intelligence at first, they don't know anything, so you actually need
Mhm.
to give this kind of jump start of knowledge to them, and that's what you can do, right? So these kind of identifications here, you can actually feed an AI system that then would take over, right? So there are many challenges out there that you can do this kind of help. And so you can just look. I think last time I checked, there were 1,500 citizen science projects out there. So there is opportunity in all kinds of things, even identifying bird species. Like, any kind of likes that you have, you can actually find and help science.
Really interesting. I learned something new. I'm so thankful. Okay, great. So now, can you tell us a little bit to the challenges and obstacles you've met on your way? And most importantly, what keeps you going when you stumble about on upon those difficult things that kind of pull you down?
Yeah, yeah. The most difficult part on this kind of let's call it the innovation path or innovation career. So, is that sometimes you do things that they fail, and you just you don't know when to stop. That's the most difficult part. And I believe for you to fix these issues, it depends on the people that you are with, right? So you really depend on the people, and not only about the team, but for example, your partner, right? So if you live with someone or if you have flatmates, you can be open and say, "Hey, I'm doing this, and it's not working. What do you think?" Even if they don't have the knowledge on that area, they might, be honest and say, "Hey, I think you're stuck."
Hmm.
So I think it's been really important to listen to the people around you. And now, regards to the team, if you're lucky enough to have a team that's helping you on the journey, you should be really open with them and saying that if you feel something's wrong or that I'm stuck or I'm doing something that's not supposed to, please tell me. Right. So you should be open, because I see many people, they just have this kind of closed mind that they just keep grinding into some problem that's unsolvable in that way and so on. Um, so I think what really gives me this feeling is that when I wake up in the mornings, I see the message from my team, or I talk with my partner, and I see that they are proud of doing the thing that I'm doing now, right? So this is, it's like you just need to be sensitive to how happy are the people around you, even if you're doing something difficult. Are they happy? If they are happy, oh,
Hmm.
then it means that you're in a good path, right? So it's just about being sensitive to these kind of things.
I love how you take cues from the environment and you really use them to help you motivate yourself. This is really amazing. Very interesting. So, To paraphrase, you advise everybody who's listening to us now when they feel stuck to talk to people, even people who have no idea about he or she is doing what he or she is doing, and to listen to them and to
Yes.
kind of tune into how does what they do make the others feel.
Yes, yes. Sometimes you're gonna take the hard truth to your face, and you have to get it. It's just life. Sometimes you get an idea that either you're doing wrong, or either the world's not ready. Just leave it. There are many other opportunities. Just keep going, because when you find something that it really is supposed to be done now, the thing flies. And you look at this. Sometimes you look at like, why is this working? This is amazing. You just don't know, but it just feel like it's right.
Yes, that's right. And I need to mention that analysis mode has won 7 awards, and that you and I, we met during the Versus Virus Hackathon in Switzerland, where you were working together with your girlfriend and a couple of other team members on creating your solution. Now, let's dive a little bit into what is analysis mode at the moment and what was it in the past?
Yes, yes. Okay, so at the moment, it's about having an AI tool for the scientists to figure out what's the best recipe for manufacturing, right? So this case, we serve directly the scientists, right? So they are the ones using the tool to help in the manufacturing. But what we started with is quite different. Um, at the height of the pandemic, I figured that one of the biggest challenges that was out there was that we didn't know much about the coronavirus. We didn't have much data about it. And my background, I was lucky enough to have the background in vaccine research prior. And I figured that if we want to create a vaccine fast enough, we should analyze the data that we have now. And one of the things that was the most challenging was if a scientist would just sit to do this kind of data labeling or analyze the genomic sequence of the virus and so on, it was going to take a long, long, long time. And you actually, there are these methods. Actually, you mentioned the protein-based vaccines. So an easy way to explain is you can figure out what should be a vaccine formula by looking at the virus genomic sequences, right? So you can look at the virus DNA or RNA, and you can figure out what should be the formula for a vaccine that to work, right? So this is kind of the rough idea. But to get to that formula is really hard. And we proposed the idea of creating some kind of game, which is classified as a citizen science project, in which people could play a game, even if you don't know what's going on behind the game. But every time you play, you're actually helping to label or identify some of these patterns that would lead to a vaccine formula, right? So this is it was a really simple way that we found. And in the end, we actually created an interface that looks like Candy Crush. And
Mhm.
we named the game Amino Crush because you're looking at amino acids and so on. But in the end, it was just a puzzle that people would be playing and finding patterns. And then there's a whole gamification behind that to make it fun and so on. But yeah, so we released the game after 1 month of development. And for our surprise, the game got viral. So when we released, I think after 1 month, we got, I think it was 100,000 gameplays. And it was a lot of people playing in Egypt and Indonesia
Mhm.
for some
Mhm.
reason. And it was really random fact, but really pushed us that, whoa, actually, there is something happening here. Because at first, our goal was, let's collect the data and then give that to the scientists. But then later, we figured out that the people that they're suffering because of the pandemic, they wanted to do something about it. And they didn't have any way to do it. So for them now, by playing that game, they're actually contributing. They have this kind of state of mind that I'm actually doing something about it, so I don't need to, stress, so I can actually fight back. And this is what happened pretty much. So we had this game. We started implementing further. We're joining the hackathons. We joined perhaps I think just 10 hackathons last year, and we got 7 awards on those. And yeah, so it was a really good idea, amazing team, and we just got all the right spots in there.
So what happened to Amino Crush?
Yeah. So after that, I think we got almost it was actually 500,000 plays, and it was 98 countries played that. And then we figured that the data that we are capturing and the analysis we are capturing was actually very much useful. And later on, we found out that the same things we found about the potential vaccine formulas were also found by other universities in the United States. So at the same time, they're doing the same research as us. So we let the same results. So it was a really big uh, tick on the checkbox that, hey, actually, we are doing something that makes sense. But then afterwards, so the game, we are a bit struggling of how to make a business out of that, and
Mhm.
if we should, anyways, because if we just want to have that as some kind of venue for people to perhaps learn a bit about how viruses work or just help science, should we do a business about it? This was the big question mark we had. So we had a few changes to the game. So one of them was, if you play the game now, you're going to have some suggestions, for example, of clinical trials that you couldn't participate to actually help science. So this is one of the ways. And we have partners that if there is a clinical trial booking, we actually will get some kind of a bonus, because the clinical trial is actually paid, right? So if you're a patient willing to help a test, you get paid. And we also get a small commission for that, which will pay for the maintenance of the game. Another thing that we were talking about, it was actually part of a hackathon in Finland with the pharmaceutical Merck, and their goal was to somehow use the game as awareness channel, because here in Finland there's this issue that people at older age, they don't want to take the vaccine, or they don't know the information, they don't know how to get it, they don't know which vaccines they need even, and they needed some kind of channel for that. So we're doing a prototype to reach these people at this age, because at this age, surprisingly, they love playing games like Candy Crush.
Mhm.
So it was just an ideal match with Merck, and then we participated on the hackathon. We had a solution with that, and so on. But in the end, we figured out that it was best to use our resources into some more urgent and bigger problem, which was on the manufacturing of cancer. So something that we can make an immediate impact.
Great. And I read on your website that actually the software, the artificial intelligence software that you've developed helps reduce the number of manual working hours on an experiment from 700 to 4 hours, which is mind blowing. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yes, yes. So there are two parts of this for this number. So the first one is that if you're a scientist doing this kind of experimental research, you're sitting on the lab for really long hours and just repeating the same experiment over and over again, because some of those they fail, and you just need to reproduce and then try again. And this takes a lot of time, right? So for example, if you do a cell culture, like growing some cells in there and see how they react to some drug or some external environment, that would take you 2 or 3 weeks growing that culture, and it could fail at any time. You can repeat over again, so on. So in a way, our solution helps the scientists to run a simulation or a forecast of how that cell culture, the setup of the experiment, or like the recipe I said, if the recipe will be successful, if you have a chance of failure. So before you go to the lab and do the thing itself, you can sit at home, open a web browser, then go to our tool, input what is the recipe you want to do, and then we'll provide you some AI analysis, which is on the failure rate, and some recommendations of what could you do to fix it. All right, so the scientists can know before hand to go there and fail. And the second part is that even after the scientists do all the experimentation, they have a lot of data on their hands, and usually it takes long time for them to sit down and just analyze the data, generate the charts, and do some statistical models on top of that. So we just try to solve these two problems into one solution for the scientists.
Really interesting. And you also mentioned that you can actually work with small data sets on your website, right? So you
Yes.
don't need those huge data sets in order to come up with a recipe that could work.
Yes, yes. Actually, this was a very surprising outcome from that
Mm-hmm.
version one of analysis mode, the game, because
Mm-hmm.
the artificial intelligence technology we created to help doing the labeling, we actually later on figured out that was very, very powerful and better used in this kind of case of small data sets, right? So this is actually okay. So small data sets just means that you don't have enough data about a problem, and you cannot use like deep learning or these fancy AI techs out there that spend millions and millions of supercomputers to run it. In our case, you can actually start with hundreds of samples. If you have thousands, better, but hundreds is already enough. And for example, in cases of novel diseases like the coronavirus, it was like ideal. And for example, the target area that we focus now is on the manufacturing of cell therapy treatments. And now cell therapy is also a problem that you have small data sets, because how they develop this is that they have to extract the cells of the patient in order to make a treatment out of that. So there is no way that you can actually collect the data from multiple patients and just use it. In this case, you actually have to be personalized for each patient. That's why it's a small data problem, and that's why we are ideal to solve that.
Really amazing, really amazing. I have another question which is not related to this, but I'm really admiring everything that you're telling me. My question is, now that you have won so many hackathons, how can our audience become winners of hackathons? What would you advise them?
Yes, yes. Okay, so about hackathons. All right. So what I learned so far is that it's all about engagement. So you should go after some solution that first inspires yourself. You have to
Mhm.
inspire yourself. You don't do something just because someone told it's a good solution. You have to feel it. Like it sounds cliche, but the passion plays a big role here. So you have find a solution that has this solution and the problem that has the passion attached to it, and then you have to find a team in which you're able to inspire, right? So it's very important that you go out, let's say a hackathon just started, go out into the channels and try to find the people that they'll be willing to join you in this journey. And usually the most difficult solutions and problems are the most exciting ones, and the ones that needs the most passion to solve it. And I think it might sound weird, but if you choose the hardest problem to solve, chances are you're gonna win, because well, if you get any progress in that one, it's really big, and that's the one that has to be driven by passion. And the second point is, I mentioned before, is all about asking for help and interacting with others. So when you have the hackathon, usually you have an amazing team that's organizing that. So you have the mentors, you have the experts there to answer your question and help you to develop further. So you should be engaging with them. You should be posting the updates. You should be posting not only your successes but also your failures, right? So during a hackathon, 3 days, you will do a lot of things that will fail, and you should actually keep some kind of log or like a diary, like I did X and didn't work, and just post this publicly to the organizers, to everyone else, so they would have a visibility that you're trying, right? So you pick the hardest problem, you got a team of motivated people around it, and you're trying really hard. This is the recipe for a good path towards a win. But of course, you're gonna get the win if you actually get into some kind of breakthrough of that problem. And even if you don't solve 100% of it, I can guarantee to you that if you just say outside of the hackathon, you might get some sponsorships or investments to help you get you into the finish line of solving 100% of the problem.
Really interesting, hands on, and very motivating. I have one last question for you, Tiago, and it is about your upcoming TED Talk. Can you please tell us about it?
Yes, yes. So this is actually quite exciting. 2 years ago, I attended at a TEDx in Luxembourg, and I got super motivated about the quality of the speeches there, and I talked with everyone there in the networking, and I told myself that I would be the next time I would be the one talking. But I actually moved back to Finland, and by coincidence, I actually saw an ad of the TEDx Oulu. So Oulu is in Finnish Lapland. It's actually nearby here. I'm actually located in the Lapland. Um, so this is very interesting because I'm going to be talking about how can we understand better our body, and how can we actually understand our cells, every single cell in our body. And the thing is, every day there is a battle, like a war going on in our body, right? So we have viruses, they have bacteria, we have our own cells, our own cells getting mutated and becoming cancer cells and so on. But we have our own body kind of fighting that. So there's a war going inside you every day, every second. And you should actually be grateful about this, because you're there. You're just a system of many cells working together. And one interesting thing I will be talking about is people tend to look at viruses and bacteria as enemies, but in a way, we actually need them. So it's part of us. So we should be grateful about this whole system working in a balance. And I'll be disclosing later on specifics. But overall, it's all about being grateful about this every day that you're alive.
Thank you. On that note, I want to sincerely thank you for engaging in this very interesting for me conversation. I hope our audience found it engaging too. I want to wish you all the best. I want to wish all the best to Analysis Mode. And I'll be definitely looking forward to watching this TED Talk. Until then, stay healthy and happy and keep on being passionate and pushing the boundaries.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Beliana. Thank you, listeners. And you can ask questions later on as well. I will do my best to reply all of them.
That's right. Thank you very much. So, thank you for watching. It has been a pleasure. Have a lovely weekend and goodbye.